Welcome back to another episode of Télévision Éducative. Tonight, I'll show you how dreams are prepared. People think it's a very simple and easy process, but it's a bit more complicated than that.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Screen Spell, an Only in San José special that investigates and analyzes the impact of digital addiction and its prominence in society. My name is Ellina, and I will be your co-host. I will be joined by Deitra Hoang for this special series. So, why are we doing a digital addiction series? Well, a little over a year ago, working with some members of the Youth Advisory Commission, I had each student pitch me something they wanted to talk about. Winner of that pitch was Deitra Hoang, and her chosen topic was digital addiction. Deitra not only researched this topic for a year, she co-wrote and co-produced the series with me, really leading the way. Honestly, since the start of Only in San Jose podcast, I've sought out the youth perspective because I feel that perspective is sorely missing from the way we choose to govern, write policy, and in politics in general. They cannot vote, they have no representation, and very few avenues to be a part of the political discourse. Yet, it's no secret that these laws that we make impact them. Teenagers today are really something else. They are some of the most intelligent, thoughtful, and caring people I've ever had the honor of knowing and working with, and it's an absolute honor for me to give them this platform. I think we can stand to learn quite a bit from them. I know I have. So for the past year, I've learned a tremendous amount of patience. They keep my perspectives fresh. They tell me all the new slang words, keep me cool, and the optimism is really unlike any other. And in the world that we're living in, I dare say we all need a little bit of that hopeful optimism of the youth. And it isn't just optimism. They are actively engaging in civics at some of the highest rates ever seen since 1972, with a sharp uptick since 2016 that has been trending upwards with each year, including recent elections. We are also already starting to see some of the records for the youngest members of being elected to Congress. I also think that it's rather timely for us to be having this particular conversation about digital addiction, considering for the first time in human history, we are entering an election year in 2024 with AI. The battle for our attention, focus, discernment is afoot. And who better to bring this issue to the forefront than the ones who have lived their whole entire lives in coexistence with smartphones, social media, and the like. So, before we get started, Deitra, please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, my name is Deitra Hoang. I'm currently a senior at Gunderson High School, and I also participate in local government as the chair of the San Jose Youth Commission and District 3 Youth Commissioner. However, although I serve on the Youth Commission, I'm here to speak as an individual on my own opinions.
Great. And, before we dive in more, I would love to hear how you got involved in the youth commission and local government. Okay, question number one, what drew you to become involved in local government? Because that's not a typical thing, I think, for the everyday teenager, especially not me. I was not thinking about government or civics or anything of the sort. And so how did that get started for you?
This probably started in middle school, where I was exposed to local government through my sister, who got a volunteering position in the Youth Advisory Council. However, I became more involved as I went more into high school, and as a freshman, I started more tangible work on policies and hosting events.
Nice. Okay, so what kind of policies are you working on in high school?
As a YAC member, I helped research and write a couple policies. One of them is about wood recycling and making private companies and construction projects recycle all wood in order to preserve our environment. And then last year, as my first year as a commissioner, I wrote probably four policies, and one of them that sticks out is implementing in-pavement lights on the sides of pedestrian crossings enhance public safety and protect minority-majority communities. Currently, in my second year, I am writing a policy proposal to implement green canopies in downtown San Jose.
That's really amazing. And what I kind of love about all of these policies that you have worked on is like they're all really kind of practical, and it's not like completely out there. Like it makes sense if you have leftover wood that you should recycle them because deforestation is a real thing, and the in-light pedestrian safety. I wish I had that in my neighborhood, honestly. So I actually might have to pick your brain later on how I can bring that to my neighborhood. But how would you, for other youth members listening or even adults, how would you describe like, getting involved in local government and like writing these policies? Like why does it matter?
I think that this matters because it's taking more responsibility in your hands to be able to speak your voice and be able to give your opinions to city council and the mayor. By
Mhm.
giving public comment and any other sort of participation in civic government, you're able to really represent your communities and be able to have a tangible effect on your communities.
Yeah, I think, some people might feel that, the things that they say don't matter, especially when we talk about a state or a federal level, that, it's really kind of impossible to get into politics. Can you talk about, as you're, working on these policies and maybe some of them being adopted, how did that make you feel?
It made me feel that the youth really did have a voice in government. I know, according to a recent survey that we sent out, that a lot of people don't know how the government um, works with the youth. And by being able to publicize how you're able to put your voice in local government, you're able to really think that the government cares about your voice and works for the people.
Amazing. I'm so inspired. I am always inspired when I'm working with the youth commission because this is something growing up when I was your age, I had no idea existed. And I feel like I would have probably really enjoyed policy writing because I really enjoy it now. And so that aside, thank you for all of your public service to the community. And now here we are talking about, digital addiction. And I wanted to, before we get into all of the research and the work that you've done in creating this series, I wanted to ask if you had a personal story with digital addiction or technology and or what you've witnessed within your peers and Gen Z, like how did you come to pick this topic and why is it of interest to you?
I'd say I recently gained an interest in matters that affect youth on a personal level, with digital addiction as a key point of interest. I remember a couple years ago, right before I became an intern for Only in San Jose, that I would spend the majority of my day just on my phone. And I don't really remember what I was doing, and now I realize that that kind of says a lot about how all that time spent doesn't really go towards anything that is fulfilling. So I would spend a couple hours jumping between apps like TikTok or Pinterest and not have any motivator to get off of those platforms. And now, because its effects have been exacerbated due to the pandemic, I believe it's more important than ever to have open and honest conversations about this topic.
So one of the things I wanted to know was, we were talking about it a little bit earlier before we hit record, which is um, you were telling me about the nature of TikTok and how it feels to be on TikTok. So can you reshare that story for us?
Yeah, so spending time on TikTok is more like a slow moving clock because there's just so many short videos on there, and spending 5 to 10 minutes on TikTok feels like spending 2 minutes on YouTube. So all of those short videos kind of contribute to the passage of time in your own head and how it feels slower in real life than it actually is.
So that's kind of what draws you in because you become not necessarily disillusioned, but dissociated from real time.
Yes.
And it feels very short.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what is your kryptonite? Like, what is your TikTok kryptonite video content that just like sucks you in?
I'm not really sure because it's just a mix of random things you don't really know what you're gonna get. A
Mm-hmm.
couple of trends you can see are maybe educational content or relatable content or things that go along with the age group that you're in. So high school or college videos or college tips. I have a lot of those since I'm a senior.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those also contribute to how you think that a lot of the videos that you watch are educational, but sometimes more so than others, they're really not.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just spending time watching them anyway and sort of getting the information out of them, but you're not really processing it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Visually, I think we don't really try to focus on having too many colors, otherwise it's kind of overstimulating in
Hmm.
a way, but visually, mm, I go for aesthetics, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of other people, visually, they don't really care about how it looks, it's more like how it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So, adding on to that, a lot of audios or voiceovers, there's like not really much background noise, it's just the producer's voice in it,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe um, sounds that are added on to emphasize that.
So how would you describe your visual aesthetics? You said not too many colors, but like it's not beige or black and white, or is it?
Not really, I guess. I'm not for that minimalist vibe, but I'm also not very a maximalist because it just sometimes gives me a headache.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for aesthetics, going back to that nature theme, I see a lot of travel videos, to
Mm-hmm.
Switzerland and whatever, and we see the mountains, the
Mm-hmm.
lakes. They're sometimes saturated, but I really like the natural vibe of that.
Okay. Okay. Um, do you ever get like local nature videos or guides or places?
Yeah, I actually saw a couple TikToks about places to go in East Side San Jose and downtown San Jose.
Mm-hmm.
A couple examples are Konozukar, which is a cafe downtown San Jose, which is really near City Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And then another is Voyager Craft Coffee, which is in San Pedro Square.
Okay. Okay. And is that San Jose Foods?
I have no idea. I do
Oh,
not pay attention to the account name unless I'm really interested.
oh, interesting. Okay. Um, well, it's also San Jose Foods is probably like very millennial. Let's see. So, yeah, so I kind of wanted to talk about all of this because I wanted to talk about how we as individuals are not above digital addiction because, for example, I have to use the computer and the phone and stuff for my work. I'm sure you have to use the computer for your schoolwork. And so we're interacting by obligation of the way our society is designed with these devices. Yeah, so I've noticed that, the millennial generation, a lot of our posts are usually about our life, like, what we ate, where we went to vacation or events or, whatever is happening in our lives. And so it's very us focused. It's like us sharing our story with our audience. But I feel like it's a little bit different for Gen Z. Um, how would you I guess articulate how Gen Z interacts with posting?
Hmm. I think there are different cultures for different apps. So on
Mhm.
Instagram, it would be more um more focused on the individual and
Mhm.
as a group,
Mhm.
and you'd get to post like birthday posts or New Year posts with your friends. But TikTok can be a little bit more group oriented instead of individual.
Mm.
So you can post things that relate to a group of people other than a specific individual. So a
Mm.
couple of examples for that could be age groups, whether you're like 15 to 18 or 24 to 29. There are
Mhm.
going to be different things that you're going to see on your For You page.
Mm. That's a very good answer. And I can totally see that in my mind. Um, it is a little bit more of a collective channel versus Instagram, which is more of like an individual channel.
Yes.
Okay.
Ultimately, with this podcast, my goal is to raise awareness of the sensitivity of addiction to screens and to provide listeners with the necessary information and tools to cultivate a healthier relationship with technology.
I've definitely suffered from digital addiction. I think in this day and age, who doesn't? I know I don't know if you ever had the experience where like you're going to do something and you pick up the phone, but then you forgot why you picked it up and you have no idea what you were doing. That happens to me all the time. And that's why sometimes I was like, I probably don't even need to be on my phone right now.
Yeah, definitely that has happened to me. Sometimes I had to separate myself from it and put it in another room.
Mm. Um, And how have you been kind of like approaching your relationship with the digital realm, the multiverse, who knows what it's called nowadays? But have you had some separation from it, and like how did that feel when that happened?
This is not related to research, but my personal experience. Um, I think it was last year my phone started to have bugs in it, so we sent it to the manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
And at the warehouse, it spent like 2 weeks there.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I was fully off my cell phone, and I
Mm-hmm.
spent more of my time doing my work on my Chromebook or my family's laptop.
Mm-hmm.
And on the weekends, we would go out to, I remember one place, Kaya Lily Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I love taking photos. So not having my phone has kind of taught me to live in the moment and appreciate the beauty that you see in that moment and in the present.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember it more?
Definitely. I think that my phone sometimes doesn't catch things in their lens than what you do in your eye.
Mm. Now let's, talk about I would love to know. Can you shed some light for our listeners? What's popular with Gen Z and how are they using social media and technology in general?
A couple apps I use are TikTok and Instagram. So I guess those could be some of the most popular social media platforms. TikTok definitely has a broader scope in terms of audience reach. Meanwhile, Instagram is mostly for casual posts or communication. However, I do sometimes see some overlap between TikTok and Instagram. For example, my sister doesn't use TikTok and instead they use Instagram Reels. But occasionally, some of the posts they send to me are originally from TikTok. I remember them telling me that the atmosphere on TikTok is a lot different from the atmosphere on Instagram Reels. They said that most of the content on TikTok lands with the right target audience,
Hmm.
and on Instagram, you can see in the comments that most of the time there are a lot of different opinions, and in that sort of sense, there's less of a presence of echo chambers and constantly having your opinion validated by people on social media.
Oh, I did not know this. And so, my TikTok algorithm, because I'm not really on it that much, I don't think it's quite there yet. And I don't care to get it there, but I do have, some videos and stuff that I like. And yeah, let's take a TikTok break. I'm gonna share one of my favorite little videos that I watch all the time.
These hawks will intentionally spread fires to hunt prey. They're called fire hawks, and they're a species of 3 specific Australian hawks that have been documented picking up burning sticks from a nearby bushfire and dropping them into tiny piles of grass up to a kilometer away. After dropping the fire stick, they will wait for the fire to spread and flush out terrified, tasty rodents. What's even crazier, though, that during a bushfire, there can be hundreds of these hawks just waiting to pick up a burning hot stick. Like a bunch of tiny winged arsonists. Caca!
So what did you think of that?
A little bit millennial, but it is a great video.
Okay, so what do you mean by a little bit millennial?
Sort of the humor behind it and all of the sound effects.
Yeah, so almost it is overproduced. Because it's frick, I love nature. It's like a modern day, funnier version of it's not Planet Earth like David Attenborough. It's a little bit different. It is educational, but yeah, I do love their sound effects. I think it's hilarious. But I guess we can say that's, of the millennial generation, there is a lot of production within the media that we consume, and definitely grew up in, like, the NPR, KQED, like all very professional sounding. But that doesn't seem to be the case for Gen Z. Like, what would you say is the visual or like sound aesthetics for Gen Z?
Oh, usually a couple sounds are trending on TikTok, so it just rotates between creators, and it's a lot of recycled content. But there's small twists in every video that makes them unique and funny. For visually, I guess I'm not really sure how to describe it, but it is like not really anything too extravagant or too minimalistic. It's just regular.
Just regular. Just the good old days. I also see Gen Z bringing back the fashion of when I was in high school. So that's
hmm
very, I was like, you're literally wearing the clothes that we were wearing. I think that's really, really funny. Okay, so, fun and games aside, we are here to speak about something serious. And, in today's episode, we'll be discussing, digital addiction, a topic that has become increasingly relevant in our technology driven world. And, addiction, for those who are not familiar, is defined as the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity, according to the Oxford Dictionary. So, addiction is something we can all be prone to, some more or less harmful than others. At the root of addiction are the feelings that trigger said behavior. And that is to say, we can be addicted to many substances, such as caffeine, which is a drug, or alcohol, things, such as a myriad of consumer items, and activities such as, shopping or gambling, etc. However, in this series, we will be talking specifically about digital addiction. And we'll also be taking a look at the physical and emotional effects of digital addiction, what we can do, and what we can do to break free from our screens, hence, breaking the screen spell. So let's start us off by defining digital addiction specifically. What is it, and why is understanding its significance so important?
So, digital addiction is a behavioral addiction that involves excessive and compulsive use of digital devices and platforms, such as smartphones, social media, or video games. According to the first quarter 2018 Nielsen Total Audience Report, the average American adult spends over 11 hours per day consuming media, including over 3 hours on the smartphone alone. So, to put this into perspective, if somebody spends 6 hours a day on their phone, it translates to around 90 full days out of a year. And this problem is so significant because digital addiction can be detrimental to our mental and our physical health. In terms of mental health, the Addiction Center describes a study conducted in 2016 that found that those with internet addiction correlated with higher amounts of depression and anxiety symptoms. Additionally, digital addiction can exacerbate existing mental health conditions. A study published by Dr. Daria Kuss and Alatz Lopez Fernandez on the National Library of Medicine has shown that people with underlying mental health disorders like ADHD, anxiety, and depression are more likely to develop internet addiction. And the same is true when you reverse that. Those with internet addiction are more likely to have other addictions and mental health disorders, such as antisocial personality disorder, social phobia, and binge eating disorder. Furthermore, digital addiction is linked to a range of health problems, including eye strain, neck and back pain, and disrupted sleep patterns. Harvard researchers have shown that using blue light emitting screen devices, such as smartphones and computers, before bedtime can suppress the secretion of the hormone melatonin, which makes it more difficult to form regular sleeping patterns. In turn, this can lead to a decrease in brain development and make falling asleep difficult, causing insomnia.
Wow, I think I suffer from all of those. Just kidding. I definitely have suffered from insomnia, and it's kind of this double-edged sword because when you can't sleep, what do? You go on your phone. And it's a vicious cycle. I also maybe not so much eye strain. I don't wear glasses, fingers crossed, that it stays that way. Um, but I do have neck and back pain, not necessarily from my phone, I think too much because I have been really working on that, but just from being on the computer. Like I've had a desk job since I was like, 21. So it's been quite some time since I've been working at a desk job. And yeah, all of those things that you mentioned definitely seems very relatable and really important that people know that and are able to kind of yeah, first step is awareness. The second step is, what can we do about it? So I would actually love if we can just check our phones right now and, I wonder what my screen time is. And you have a screen time function, right?
Yep.
All right. So let's see. My this is not loading yet. Okay. So my average, so this week an hour and 15, that's definitely going to go up. Um last week 3 hours and the week before that, 4 hours and 8 minutes. So that's not too bad. That's just a weekly average. I don't think I spend 3 hours on the phone every day. No, wait, that is the average. Ha. So according to you, you had a statistic like if we spend 6 hours, then that's 90 days. That's 3 months out of the year. That's like really wild to think about. And so I'm at half that. So I spend like a month and a half, which, oh my gosh, what can you do with a month and a half of time back? What is your weekly average?
I don't have a weekly average counter, but I had to manually calculate it, and it's 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Okay, so we're about the same. I feel very good about that. I think it'd be kind of cool for the rest of this podcast. Let's like make a pact and see if we can reduce that number, as we progress in the episodes, and we'll just check in each week about how we're doing. And do you have a digital detox day?
I do not currently, but I try to have it at least once a month.
Once a month. Okay. You know what? Let's really challenge yourself. We can do it like once a week. So no
Mhm.
social media because I don't think we can completely avoid our phones, but let's say no social media at least one day a week.
All right.
Okay. Let's pick a day. What day do you think?
I can do Wednesdays.
Okay. Wednesdays is good. I like Wednesdays. It's the middle of the week. That's perfect. Okay. All right, so that is our commitment. And for listeners who want to join in, we encourage you to do so. Just, to track how much time you're spending on your phone. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, we will have some polls. Be great if you can answer them. And you can also send us voicemails on Spotify. And so that would be really great just to hear listeners' feedback and personal experience with digital addiction and how much time they spend on their phones and anything else would be lovely. Okay, so so we had just talked about the general significance of digital addiction. Now let's talk about something that you mentioned. So about the blue light. Can you elaborate on how brain development might decrease or how the blue light affects other parts of cognition?
Yeah, this finding is also supported by an article published in March 2021 by Stone Ridge Sensors, which states that the glowing light emitted by devices tends to interfere with the brain and body's internal light cues and sleep inducing hormones. If we take a look at the brain's components and how they are affected by prolonged screen exposure, we can see the role of gray matter. And gray matter is a type of neural tissue that's responsible for processing information, making decisions, and regulating emotions. Research has shown that the excessive exposure to screens and the constant barrage of visual and auditory stimuli can lead to a decrease in gray matter volume in certain areas of the brain. This can result in cognitive impairments such as decreased attention span, impaired memory, and difficulty with decision making. The decrease in gray matter can be particularly concerning for adolescents, whose brains are still developing and are more vulnerable to the negative effects of excessive screen time. Neuroscientists have discovered that excessive screen time can shrink the cerebrum and hippocampus, which regulate reading, thinking, learning, recognition, and long term memory.
Wow, that's really quite a lot. And yes, your brain is still developing, I believe, until like 26. So it's really another reason why I think it's really important that we're talking about this and also talking about it from a youth perspective. So, aside from the, mental and physical problems, what other areas of an individual's life can be affected by digital addiction?
Yeah, this addiction can also affect our productivity, relationships, and overall quality of life. In addition to this, it is also important to consider its relevance in today's society. As mentioned before, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced many of us to rely more heavily on digital devices and platforms for work, education, and social connections. This over reliance on devices and the constant availability of online media can affect our productivity, as we may find ourselves distracted by notifications and unable to properly focus on tasks. It may also impact our relationships, where we prioritize online connections over real life interactions. This can lead to feelings of isolation and disconnection from those around us. However, it is important to note that not all technology use is inherently bad or addictive. In fact, it can provide many benefits, such as connecting us with loved ones beyond geographical barriers, providing access to information and resources, and enhancing our creativity. The most important thing is the most important thing to note is finding a balance between technology use and other aspects of our lives. This may involve setting limits on screen time, practicing mindfulness and self awareness, and engaging in activities that bring us fulfillment.
I really like that you mentioned, not all technology use is inherently bad or addictive. These are tools, and I think they are very powerful tools that have really provided us with a lot of information and knowledge that we didn't quite have access to before. So I think that is really, really great. But as we will discuss in other episodes about the algorithms and like these addictive designs, it can go very quickly from good to bad. And that everything you listed was a lot. Sometimes I feel like people can be overwhelmed, and it is overwhelming, but it's really also important to talk about, what we can do. And so, Deitra, can you go over what people can do to manage their device usage and prevent a digital addiction?
Yeah, at the individual level, people can take steps to reduce their screen time. This can be as simple as taking short walks outside or scheduling something you mentioned before, called digital detox days, which is a designated day when you completely disconnect from all digital devices. This regular break from technology can help reset your mind and reduce dependency. Other things you could do are set limits on device usage, manage in person socialization, and lastly, engage in activities like exercising, or if you're ambitious, even learning a new language. At the family level, parents can set limits on young children's device usage or monitor their digital activities for online safety. They can also encourage them to engage in other activities like playing outdoors, reading, or pursuing hobbies.
How would you say, or what are the activities that you enjoy doing outside of being on your phone?
I like to play tennis. I play it with my friends a couple times over the weekend, and I also roller skate, but I am not that good at it.
Roller skating is hard. It's way harder than rollerblading.
Yeah. I fell a lot of times.
But you get back up. That is the point. Okay. So I think it's also important that we don't frame this just as an individual problem because it isn't. This is a systemic issue, and on a systemic level, there is movement, thankfully. So, Deitra, can you tell us what you found?
Yeah, absolutely. Governments and organizations are promoting digital literacy, responsible use of technology, and online safety measures. On a state level, California recently passed a bill to help students identify misinformation online. On a local level, San Jose Spotlight reported that media literacy instruction is to be implemented throughout schools, targeting core subjects like language arts and science. More specifically, the Eastside Union High School District expressed concern about student access to credible information. This media literacy teaches students how to analyze and evaluate media and information responsibly. However, internationally, some countries have also implemented regulations to restrict access to certain digital content, such as social media or video games, in order to reduce the risk of addiction. For example, the South Korean government imposed regulations on online game venues to reduce gaming access to teenagers under the age of 16 from midnight to 6 a.m. On a corporate level, it is crucial to hold the companies responsible for contributing to the excessive device usage problem. We as individuals do have power and agency, but it takes a lot of time and practice to be able to manage our relationship with tech. Similar to how parents can set limits on their children's device usage at the family level, addressing this issue on a broader scale may require the involvement of regulatory bodies and legal actions.
I like that you, especially the legal actions, because systems change is changing how we do things, which oftentimes looks like legislation, meaning, you can either create new laws governing how tech companies design their products, or, you can take them to court and force them to change. And from school systems to individuals, a lot is actually happening in the realm that you have already just shared. But what other, can you talk about what you found so far in legal actions?
One notable example is the Seattle, Washington School District v. Meta lawsuit. They focused on corporations like Facebook and Instagram. They exemplified the efforts to address the impact of technology on students' well being and educational experiences. The lawsuit highlights the importance of holding companies accountable for their role in perpetrating excessive device usage. By initiating legal action, school districts aim to bring attention to the adverse effects of excessive device usage, particularly among students, and seek remedies to promote a healthier relationship with technology. Furthermore, the ongoing discussions around AI ethics also play a significant role in addressing the broader issue of corporate responsibility. As artificial intelligence continues to shape our digital landscape, it becomes imperative to establish ethical guidelines and standards for its development, deployment, and usage. These discussions center around various aspects, such as algorithmic transparency, device data privacy, and the social impact of AI technologies. In addition, mental health professionals, such as the US Surgeon General, are increasingly recognizing digital addiction as a legitimate condition, and they are developing evidence based treatments to help people manage their technology use and overcome addiction. By taking a thoughtful and intentional approach to our technology use, we can improve our overall well being and cultivate a healthier relationship with screens.
Okay. All right. So there you have it. That is quite a deep dive into the topic of digital addiction. Additionally, I think it's really great that, we highlighted there's things that you can do on an individual and family level. There are things happening on a school level and government level. And now we also have things like the US Attorney General, Surgeon General, I'm sorry, the US Surgeon General. I did see, that PSA on, mental health and digital addiction. So I think that's really amazing. And also, these lawsuits are really beginning to address some of the issues, and that's how we create change systemically. Is going through the legislative route. And so today, we've defined what digital addiction is, touched on its mental and physical health impacts, and considered its relevance on our current society. We also discussed some strategies for finding healthy balance between technology use and other aspects of our lives. And as we wrap up this episode, I really want to encourage you and, maybe if for your family as well, to reflect on your own relationship with screens. Consider how you might make these small changes to improve your well-being, and maybe that means setting aside dedicated screen-free time each day, practicing mindfulness, and when you do use technology or seeking additional resources on the topic. Deitra, anything else you need to add?
No. Yeah, I don't think so. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and catch us next week as we interview.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and we'll catch you in our second episode, where we interview Miss Snigdha Samantre on the differences between in-person and online communication.
Amazing. I can't wait for that interview. And before we actually sign off, I also wanted to end this episode and each episode that we do with a little mindfulness hack and tools that we can use in the everyday to help us manage our relationship with technology. And to help us do that is my dear friend Rashmi Guttal. They is a somatic practitioner, restorative justice facilitator, and mediator. Through her background in asana, mediation, and meditation and conflict resolution, she has created somatic meditation, and she is going to walk us through that. And you can learn more about Rashmi in our show notes. So without further ado.
Hi, my name is Rashmi, and I'll be leading you through a gentle somatic practice today. Simply put, somatics is the practice of connecting the mind and the body together. So just begin by noticing your body just as it is right now. Just noticing your seat and your posture and your breath. No need to change anything. But if you'd like, maybe bringing your shoulders up towards your ears, squeezing them in, and exhale, rounding them down the spine, sitting up nice and tall. Maybe bringing one hand to the heart, and one hand to the belly, connecting with your breath and your body. Just noticing your breath here, taking a deep inhale through the nose, feeling the belly rise. Exhaling out of the nose. Doing that a couple times at your own pace. Breathing in deeply through the nose. Exhaling deeply through the nose. Allowing your jaw to soften. And as you're ready, maybe just gently noticing your heart center. Checking in about how you feel in this moment. All feelings are welcome, and if it feels safe to, fully allowing yourself to feel however you feel. Maybe noticing the sensations that arise. Continuing to breathe here. And we'll just gently end this practice today by taking a deep inhale through the nose This time exhaling out of the mouth. Feel free to come back to this process whenever you'd like. Thank you so much for joining me.